If you looked at gaming gear recently, you've seen Chinese brands everywhere. Half the price, same specs on paper, and everyone online arguing about whether they're actually good. So over the past year I bought and tested more than 80 Chinese peripherals across every category. Mice, keyboards, monitor, mousepads, audio, whatever. And here is what I found out, category by category, where Chinese brands genuinely deliver and where they absolutely don't. And I'm starting with mice because this is where I have the most stuff and honestly the clearest opinion out of everything. So I've gone through mice from WLMouse, Lamzu, ATK, VXC, VGN, Mchose, Zaopin, whatever. I played rank with all of them, long sessions, kept swapping back and forth with whatever mainstream mouse I was using at that time. And to be honest, I just couldn't feel the difference. After enough swaps, I kinda stopped expecting to notice anything because there was nothing to notice. Now for example, brands like Mchose make a straight up copy shape of one of the most popular mouse out there, the Logitech G Pro Super Light shape. So I ran both for like 2 weeks, same pad, same games. And legit could not separate them in game. Clone was like $60 to $70, original goes for $150 to $160. Almost $100 difference for the same experience. Now not every mouse was great, I had like 5 mice from different brands that just tracked wrong. A bunch of skipping, jittering, my crosshair going to the moon mid-fight, stuff like that. Now in theory they had the same sensor inside, same MCU as other clones that work perfectly, but one brand nails the implementation and another one just doesn't. So you really can't just go by the spec sheet alone. You have to go by which brands people are actually using without problems. In my opinion, like ATK, VGN, Lamzu, Mchose, WLMouse. Those names come up constantly in mouse communities and they're pretty loved. So stick to that tier and you're good. Now a random brand on Temu with 0 reviews, just don't. Also coating on some Chinese mice can go greasy or get weird texture faster than like mainstream. It's not a huge problem, but worth knowing before you buy. And one more thing, resale. If you swap mice often, a used Logitech or Zoe sells kinda easy. A used VGN or Mchose, almost no second-hand market for those in most regions. Not a deal breaker, but keep it in mind. Not a lot of people actually know about these brands. So mice easiest call in this video. Keyboard on the other hand, I had some problems there. So right now I use a Wooting, which is not a Chinese brand, but before that I was on a Melgeek, before that I was on a DrunkDeer, before that some random Chinese brand I genuinely don't even remember the name of. Now all of them were Chinese companies and most of them were actually good. Sound was great if you even care about that. Rapid trigger worked, actuation points did what I said them to do, profiles were also saved. Now for the price compared to a Razer or Corsair or even HyperX, Chinese boards at that range just sound better and feel better. It's pretty simple. Now I also got 2 keyboards from smaller newer brands that died on me after like 2 or 3 weeks. Keys getting stuck, had to spam every button to unstick them, and Attack Shark official driver had a remote access Trojan flagged by multiple people in the community last year. Now for a lot of these brands you will find no help from their customer support. You can't yell at them to send you like a replacement or refund you the money, so yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, that's the pattern with Chinese peripherals in general. They're super good, but the software side is still behind. Some of these drivers from lesser known brands are just terrible. And the more established ones are moving to web-based drivers now, which is way cleaner because you're not installing random stuff. And also nobody warns you about this. Firmware updates on some of these brands mean downloading some random exe file from a Google Drive or Mega Link. The bigger brands handle it better, but it's still not clean compared to what you get from like Wooting or even like Logitech. So Mchose, DrunkDeer, Melgeek, Epomaker, Akko, all are fine to be honest. Brand new company releasing their keyboard, same story basically as mice, just avoid them. But there is one category here with basically 0 risk and then one right after that genuinely surprised me. Now as for mousepads, nothing really to stress about here. You have no software, no firmware, no driver problems. You open the box and you know within 5 seconds if it's good or not. Now I mostly use glass pads and most of them are manufactured in China, regardless of what brand is on top. So even when you buy like a Western glass pad, production comes from the same place most of the time. On the cloth side, I got pads from T-Evolution, from ATK. They have like kinda nice glide, solid base, did what they're supposed to do. And if I didn't already had like an artisan, I would have been completely fine running one of those daily. Now the funny thing is that once you add shipping from China, the price ends up being almost the same as buying locally anyway. So if you're debating between like some Logitech or SteelSeries pad and like a Chinese clone, just get whatever is easier to buy and return in your region. If you really want to try some artisan clones without paying $100 for a pad, sure, the Chinese options are cheaper there. But for like a regular pad that does the job, just buy local. And next we have monitors, and this is where the price almost seems too good to be real. Now the Chinese monitor I actually use is the Titan Army P2712V. It's 27-inch, 4K at 160Hz, and you can even switch it to 1080p at 320Hz for competitive. They sent it to me and when I looked at the price I was kinda confused. $250 for those specs seemed like a scam to be honest. Now the trick is that these Chinese monitor brands are using the same panels that go into mainstream monitors. The actual panels often come from the same factories like BOE, AUO, that supplies Asus, LG, and to be honest like the majority of them. So in reality you're not getting some knockoff display if you have like a worry about that. What you're not getting is the same firmware, calibration, or the polish around it. Now WLMouse switching between 4K and 1080p, it's perfect to be honest, no problems with that. Colors were decent for an IPS at this price, totally fine for gaming. Now for $250, if I didn't already have like a 480Hz OLED, I could see this being my main monitor like if I just played games all day. Now for someone on a budget who wants like a high refresh for competitive and 4K for single players, it's really hard to beat this at this price. But the OSD menu is just painful to be honest. Ugly, confusing navigation, annoying buttons. They put real engineers on the panel and then some dude from Fiverr made the menu to be honest. The stand is also super basic too, but I recommend the monitor arm no matter what brand you get, so that's whatever. What I can tell you is how it holds up long term. Now these Chinese monitor brands just haven't been around long enough for the data to exist. That's not criticism, it's just like reality. And monitors are the one category where you really need to buy from somewhere with proper return protection. If a monitor shows up dead or has like a panel problem, you need to send it back without shipping it to China. Now, of course, a lot of these brands also will have warehouse in Europe or even like US, so they can ship from there. But check in with their support beforehand to be 100% sure. And if you need this for color work or design, just no. For gaming at this price, yeah, it's kinda decent. And next we had the category that surprised me the most, and I'm talking about audio. Now, first gaming headsets, Chinese or mainstream, I would just avoid both to be honest. With Chinese gaming headsets specifically, from what I've seen in community or forums or even Reddit, QC is super random. They're fragile, they get damaged in shipping, and if something breaks, you have the same support problem as everything else, but even with a more delicate product. And even if you go with HyperX or Corsair, you're still getting mediocre audio in a plastic shell, so it doesn't really matter what brand you pick here. Now, if we talk about IEMs, this is what actually caught me off guard. I got a bunch of these Chinese IEMs from CCA, the CRA model specifically, super cheap, like $20 to $30. Now, I was expecting them to be whatever, but once I set up a proper EQ on them, they sounded kinda good. Noticeably better than like gaming headsets anyway. Cleaner, better separation, less fatigue over like long sessions. Of course, again, just for gaming to be specifically. And I also use like Simgot at different price points. I use like their $99, $149, and I'm currently on a pair around like $500. And at every tier price, the quality was just there. And that's the thing with Chinese IEMs. This is probably the one category where they're not just matching mainstream, but actually past it. And there's just no reason to pay more for some brand name on audio when at the same price these companies are just better. So that's every category, and here is the math and the verdict. Now a full setup with like an Mchose mouse around $65, Mchose keyboard around $55, Titan monitor around like $250, mousepad for like $40 to $50, budget IEMs for $25. Throw in like a Maono mic if you need one, and all of this put together is roughly around $440 to $450 in total. And the mainstream equivalent easily over $1,000, maybe more depending on what monitor and mouse you pick. Mice are by far the easiest win, just start here. Keyboards solid if you go with established brands. Mousepads barely a conversation, just get what you like. Monitor great for a budget gaming, but buy with return protection and don't expect it for like color work or just like work in general. Audio, just get IEMs. Headsets, just avoid them to be honest. But if you're someone who doesn't want to deal with any of this, doesn't want to research brands, doesn't want to risk a weird unit, doesn't want software that feels like it's from 2012, mainstream brands are fine. So drop your setup in the comments. I want to see what mix of Chinese and mainstream you're running, and if you had any horror stories with any brands. And if you want to see and learn more about peripherals in general, check out the next video.